Well, good morning, everybody, or evening or afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm hoping you're enjoying your time in isolation, presumably. Fun times. So, anyway, thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to have a quick look at DSLR Remote Pro, or Breeze Booth for Windows, as it's now known. So we're going to sort of have a look, I guess, from a bit of a beginner's perspective. So we're going to sort of start from the beginning and build a basic interface using the setup wizard, and then tweak a few things as we go. A couple changes on the interface, maybe getting some print templates set up and tweaks to GIF overlay and email settings and a few things like that. Obviously, I know a bunch of you in the group already use DSLR Remote Pro shirts, so you're probably pretty familiar with the basics of how it works. If you've never used it before or you're new to it, I think one of the most important things to sort of realize with all Breeze software, but especially DSLR Remote Pro, is the flexibility that's sort of built into it. You can design some pretty incredible interfaces and user experiences with this software. But you sort of need to maybe get your head around the basics of how it works first. So I think this video today, or this webinar today, hopefully will be just lay some good foundation, I suppose, to build on. As I said with my class the other day, just because there's a little bit of a delay on the webinar, I'll keep an eye on the comments as we go, but if you are asking questions, they may be a bit out of sync with where I'm actually up to. All right, so we're going to jump into Windows here. So this is one of our photo booths that I have set up here. So I've got DSLR Remote Pro installed, and obviously there's a easy to find shortcut on the desktop. So I'm just going to open this up. Ignore that. Okay, so I'll just make this bigger so we can see. So there's a couple of things I like to do out of the box with DSLR Remote Pro before we even really get into running a session or anything like that. And the first thing is tweaking or changing these shortcut buttons up here in the software. So basically, these shortcuts will take you to various sections. So, for example, printer setup, print layout. Advanced settings takes us into more of the detailed settings for the software, camera settings, etc. I don't particularly like how they're set by default when you first install the software, so I changed them to make them a bit easier to understand for my staff, basically. So if you come into the view menu up here and go to photo booth shortcut settings, you can actually change the name and decide which of these options you want on or off. I tend to turn off printer setup because you can actually access that through the print layout. The photo booth setup wizard is generally, for me at any rate, not something you run all the time, so I don't have that up there as an option. So I turn that one off. Print layout we keep because we tend to use it at every event, and I rename it to just layout to keep it a bit shorter. Advanced settings we definitely keep, but I just rename it to admin because I just, partly just because it's a shorter word and makes the button a little bit smaller. Event info we're going to turn on. I'm going to rename that to event. Start photo booth we'll definitely keep, but I just call it start. And camera settings we'll also definitely keep, but we just call camera. All the other options here, generally, at least for me, for most of the times, we don't use enough to warrant having a shortcut button up there. So we hit OK on that, and now we have what I think is just a slightly easier to read and understand menu system up the top. And for me, that's important, especially when you're working with your photo booth operator staff, just to keep it nice and clean and nice and simple. The other thing you can do, if we just pop back in for a second, you can actually make the size of these buttons a little bit bigger by just increasing the number here. So if we go to 150, we can make those buttons even bigger again. So one thing I suppose some people find the user interface for Breeze in the back end a little plain, I suppose, or maybe a little technical looking. Uh, on the most part, I personally find it very logical and quite easy to understand. But probably the key thing to get your head around is that a lot of the setup of the software is done, or probably should be done in the office prior to events. So when your staff are running a photo booth, they don't really need to worry about all the settings. When we do events, our staff, basically all they ever see or use are these buttons up here. And 9 times out of 10, the only button our staff ever need to hit is the layout button to load in their print photo strip template. Excuse me, or maybe just change some camera settings. So aside from that, really, our operational staff basically only ever use these 2 buttons. So from their perspective, Breeze is actually really easy to use software. But to be fair, you do need to put a little bit of time into learning it and getting your head around it, so you can get the most out of it. But once you do that, you can do some pretty cool stuff. On the left here, your camera settings. Now, Breeze has a couple different ways you can control your camera, which we'll get to in a second. But basically, these are your simple camera settings. When you adjust your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO here, it basically will also guesstimate what your live view settings should be. So when you change your photo settings here, it's also going to adjust the exposure for your live view. And that's an easy way to do it, but sometimes you don't get a great live view result. So we're going to look at that as well, and I'll show you a better way to do it. Okay, so we've tweaked this a little bit more to the way I like it. So what I want to do now is just run through the setup wizard. So the setup wizard will basically give us a workable interface and build the screens that we need to get started with. So if we come up to File and then down to Photo Booth Setup Wizard, it's just going to prompt us if we had already been working on a particular event or interface. Did we want to save that first? Well, since I haven't, I don't need to save anything I've been working on. So we just need to give it a name. So we'll just call it Steve Party. And we'll go next. So once we get into here, we get a few options. So basically, what are we wanting to capture? Photos or boomerang GIFs, or just photos, or just boomerangs, or videos, etc. So I'm going to leave it at photos and boomerangs. Then you can pick the interface theme that you want to use. Now, Breeze comes with a bunch of basic themes, trade, wind, white, blue, and some multilingual options as well. But you can also install third-party themes. So through the Wilkes website, we sell a bunch of Breeze themes. So one of those is Hollywood. So I'm going to select that one for this demo today. Basically, that will then set the interface up with a particular style with buttons and keyboards to match. So then we just need to decide, where do we want the buttons placed on the touchscreen? Do we want them down the side, or do we want them down the bottom? I think usually towards the bottom looks better. There's some options there for live screen, so if you want it to be a 3:2 ratio, 1:1 ratio, a full screen, etc. So I'm going to use full screen today. Obviously, we want to use the touch screen. I think most people would these days, but you can control Breeze completely through a keyboard or external buttons. Basically, we can give people the option to select color or black and white. Yes, George, you can definitely create your own themes. So you can basically, you can create all your own. Well, I suppose a theme is different to an interface. An interface is the set of screens that you use in the software. That, for example, your ready screen, the countdown screen, your sharing screen. A theme is sort of a package of those that you can. That it needs to be set up in a particular way, so you can then load it into the setup wizard. So it might be a topic for a different conversation as to when you use a theme and when you just sort of design your screen. So we can maybe chat about that in the Facebook group afterwards. So we'll keep on going. So you can basically enable the options that you want here. If you want to preview each photo after it's taken, so we'll turn that one on. Do we want to display a print preview and ask for confirmation? I personally tend not to use that, so we'll leave that one off, and so forth. And we will enable email. So once we have that the way we like, we just hit next. And the last question is just about our print layout. So we'll basically just for now go for a double strip of 3 photos, and then we'll hit the finish button. So what that's going to do is go ahead and set up all the screens for us, and it's going to tell you where they're being stored. So it's basically my documents folder, photo booth images, Steve Party. And it's also showing me where the images are going to save to my computer as well. So we'll OK that, and we'll just have a quick look where that's all saved. So if we go to Documents, into this folder called Photo Booth Images, we have Steve Party, and in here we can see all the screens that the setup wizard has created. So it's created my start screens. So I've got my GIF and my photo button with the color and black and white buttons. What else do we have here? We've got our countdown. So Breeze allows you to use animated GIFs for countdowns and various other screens, loading and processing screens. So it's pulled those in from the theme. And so this is another one, a processing screen. So when it's generating the GIF, it's going to use this loading GIF in the interface. So any of these screens now you can edit any way you want. So if you're not happy with what they look like or the position of the buttons, you can open any one of these up in, say, Photoshop, and you can move things. So for example, if we have a look at this this screen here, which is the share screen. So if you don't like where the position of that email button is, you can open this up in Photoshop and you can move that any way you want. So what a lot of people do when they're first starting out is they run the setup wizard basically as a way to generate, I guess, a template of the screens that are needed. And then from there, you just edit them to however you like, and you can completely change them. But the thing you have to understand and remember in Breeze is that the interface or the screens are sort of designed in 2 parts. There's the graphical element, which are these screens here that we're looking at. But then in Breeze itself, you have to tell the software, you have to tell the software what buttons are clickable and where you want your live view and things like that. So if we just quickly jump back into DSLR Remote Pro, and we go into Admin, and then if we come down here to Start Options, Touchscreen Settings, and we go Show Edit Touchscreen here, we can see that we now have got touch areas assigned to each graphical element, which I'm just going to adjust a little bit here. So if I just move this for a second, so this is our photo button. So this is one whole image. Now obviously the software doesn't know when you make a graphic in Photoshop where the button needs to be, so you need to tell it. So basically you can right click anywhere in here and say Add Action, and you can choose from a list of all these available actions. So it's everything from start buttons to changing from color to black and white, selecting different filters, changing the number of prints that you want to go print, exit buttons, email buttons, everything. But you need to select these actions and then apply them over the graphics. So in this case, we want this start button here, and we just maybe want to shrink down this a little bit here. Now the power of this is that it means you can basically, you get a lot more flexibility when you're designing your interfaces. So a good example is if you think about an event, you've got people that that drink a lot and they get a bit clumsy with their hands. So if you have, for example, these buttons down here, which are a little bit smaller, sometimes you find like drunk people have troubles hitting on the right spot. So you could basically represent the black and white button with this graphic here, but you can stretch out this touch area to be much bigger. And we can stretch out this color button touch area to be much larger as well. So now if someone touches anywhere down in this section, it's still going to trigger that color button, and it's still going to trigger the black and white button. In addition to that, it also means that you can add in like hidden buttons. So a good one to add in is a reprint screen. So there's an action here called display reprint selection screen, and basically when you tap on this touchscreen action, it brings up all your previous all the previous sessions that you've done, and you can reprint them off. But we don't want people to know about this button, because otherwise people will spend half their evening reprinting photos. So we want to keep it hidden. So we just drag a touchscreen action up here, and so it's a little hidden button that our staff have access to. But guests don't know about it, because unless we design a graphical element behind it, it's essentially a hidden button. So I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to quickly turn something off we don't need. Okay, so we OK that, and we'll take a quick look at it, and we'll hit the start button and see what we've actually got here. So we've got our color and black and white buttons, and now because I made that change in the touchscreen editor, I can actually click, if you see my mouse, right off the button, because I've created a much bigger target to people to click on. Alright, so we'll go color, and we're going to hit the GIF button. I'll do a boomerang GIF. There's not going to be much movement because my dummy is not going to move much. Alright, so we're happy with that. And then we get to the email screen where we can put an email in. And send that. And we'll just run through taking a photo session as well. So I'll switch it over to black and white. And it's going to take 3 photos. Okay, and it's displaying the print layout, which we will need to come and tweak, because at the moment that looks pretty basic. But there we go, we've run through a basic GIF session and a basic photo session. And we'll OK that. Alright, and to exit out, there's 3 little dots up the top, and we can click in the top left-hand corner, and that will get us back to the start screen. So there's a few other things we want to do before we can really progress. So because we've got email sharing on, one thing we need to ensure is that we've actually set up our email settings. So if we come back into admin or the advanced settings, and then over to output, we've got our email settings here. And so in here is where we set up the email template. So the subject of the email, if you want to send it as a plain text email, you just type in your text here. If you want to do a full HTML formatted email, you can add that in there. Now, the great thing about Breeze is that you can create really customized email templates. It's just that you don't do the creation of the email in Breeze itself. You'd need to use a third-party tool, and one that I talked about in the iPad class is a website called befree.io, and I'll post a link to that in the Facebook group. But it is a really great web-based email template generator, and we design all our email templates in that. And then you just cut and paste the HTML into Breeze, and it produces really beautiful emails. So for the minute, I'm just going to leave it just like that. The main thing we want to look at is the email server settings. So you need to ensure that you've put in your SMTP email details. So this should work with basically any SMTP email server. We recommend, well, I personally recommend a service called Postmark app, but also SendGrid works. I know some people use Gmail. I don't think Gmail is a great option for doing this because you find you might have some deliverability issues, and I believe they're making some changes as well, Gmail, that might break a few things. So definitely consider something like Postmark or SendGrid for sending emails. But you need to have your username, password, and your SMTP server in here. Otherwise, it won't send. Okay, so we've got that. So that's all set. So the next thing we probably want to look at is the layout. So if we come into here, so this is currently our the print layout. So basically we can, for every photo that's taken, in this session we're doing a 3-photo session, we have 3 boxes, and we can move these wherever we want on the page. Okay, just quickly answering a question here on email. That the email quality is very bad. That's just a setting. I'll finish off the print layout thing, and I'll jump back into email and show you where you can change settings. You can basically output the email images to be whatever quality you want. So I'm just going to import an overlay onto here, and on my desktop I save some artwork. So here's an overlay file for my print. And from here, I can just resize things to fit the box, like so. To do this one. One. Okay, so we've fixed that up so it's looking a little bit better, and we can OK that. So now, just real quick, if we run through actually one thing we will do, if we go back into admin, what we'll look at is, if we go back into email settings, is by default, basically what happens is Breeze will email the print layout. So if the quality of that is not to your liking, it's basically because in email settings the maximum width and height is too low. So I know that my print layout is approximately 1800 by 1200. So we can set the size to be something like that. But because it's a photo strip, we don't want to really send both sides of the photo strip, so we actually want to crop that photo strip in half. And so we're using pixel dimensions to figure that out. So from the left, we want to start from pixel 0, so right on the left edge and the top, and we want to make it, I think it's 620, you know what, this should be 1240 by 1844 is probably more correct. 620 by 1844, and that should give us, hopefully, half of the print layout, so one strip. So we'll change that. We'll OK that, and we'll run a session. see how we go. Okay, so now we have the new print layout, and because I've applied the crop settings, we're just getting one half of the strip. So if we are emailing it, this is what we want to send, just half the 6x4, not the other side of the strip. This makes more sense. So now when I email that, it should email at the size that I put, which would be 620 by 1844, which should be pretty high resolution, or certainly shouldn't be bad quality. Now, another little tweak that I want to make to this interface is the length that the image is displayed between shots. So after each photo is taken, it's showing a preview of that photo. For me, 3 seconds is too long, so we're going to set that back to 1. And the minimum time to display the processing screen here is basically when you've finished the session, how long that last screen displays for. Now, there is a little bit of processing that has to be done, so it will display for as long as it needs to, but if you want to slow down the number of sessions you're doing, so if it's for whatever reason, you just want to give people more time to get out the booth, you could set that to 10 seconds, and so at the end of each session, before it gets back to the start screen, you can add an extra 10 seconds to display that last processing screen, just to slow sessions down. I generally set it to 0 and just let Breeze display the processing screen for literally as long as it needs to, and not a second longer. So now, if we OK that, and just run a quick session. Pablo, I'll get to your question in just a sec. It's just displaying that preview between the sessions for just 1 second, so it makes the whole thing a little bit faster. Okay, and so that's good. And so that last thank you screen now only displayed for about a second rather than 5 seconds. So I've sped the whole session up because we're only displaying the preview between shots for 1 second, and that final thank you screen only displays for 1 or 2 seconds. So Pablo raised a good point. So in my print layout, basically, I go for a slightly more square crop on the print, so it's probably more like a 5x4, but we're shooting 6x4. So what happens is people on the outer edges of the photo possibly get cut out of the print. So what you can do, if we come into the live mode on your keyboard, if you hold the Shift key and then use the left and right arrows, you can actually bring the crop in like this. And so now you can get it something closer to what's actually going to be displayed on the print. So that was Shift and the left and right keys to adjust the crop. So that's one way to do it. Another way to tweak the live view, if we come back into admin or advanced settings, and we go to the live view settings here, you can adjust that here as well. So you can bring the cropping in from the left and right, or the top and bottom. You can also do a digital zoom as well if you want to zoom in a little bit. And here you can also move the live view around the screen a bit. So let's just say hypothetically we want a smaller live view. We only want to make it 500, and we want to have it sort of centered on the screen. So we'll push it down, say 150 pixels. We OK that. Hope I got this right. So now I've created a small a much smaller live view, which, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you might want to do it. So you can move around the live view in here, but we're going to put it back to the full size, which is 800. So that should be back to where it was, and I'm going to leave the cropping the way it is for now. Now, one thing that is missing from this interface that the setup wizard doesn't put in for whatever reason is sort of a smile screen or a prompt that the photo is about to be taken. So I'm going to put that in, and here's a smile screen I prepared earlier. So there's two screens you can use. One's called taking and one's called release. So the release screen is basically as the camera's releasing the live view and about to take the photo, and taking is when it's actually taking the photo. I tend to make them the same screen for both, so I'm going to grab both these files and copy those, and I'm going to put them into here. I'm going to replace the ones that were in there because they were just black screens. So now, if we come and take a photo, now we get a smile screen prompt in between. So to me that feels a little bit more intuitive now, and sort of people can get a better idea of what's coming up. Otherwise you catch them a bit too off guard. Okay. Alright. So we've got that. That's looking pretty good. But I don't want to share the print layout. I'd actually prefer to make a GIF out of the three photos that we're taking. So we want to enable GIF and get that set up so we can email that instead of the print layout. So we'll come into admin and we go into output. Okay, and we want to enable create animated GIF of photos. And so that's going to take the photos that we're taking in the session and turn it into a GIF. So we'll come into the settings, and in here we can set all our size options. So I think something like 1000 pixels wide is pretty good size for a GIF. Basically, the GIF width is the size of the actual the GIF itself, the output file. So the outer edges. The photo width is the size of the photo that is contained within that GIF. And then you can move it, you can position it within there. So the easiest way to think about it is like a Polaroid type picture. So a Polaroid is sort of maybe like a 6x4, but the photo within it is only might be a square or a 5x4 crop sort of inset in the top. So that's what these settings allow you to do. And then the image interval is basically the speed between photos. So changing that number essentially adjusts how quickly the GIF plays back. So that is the basic settings that look fairly right to me. When you're creating an MP4 copy of it, which you're going to want to do, it's worth jumping into here, into the command. Really, all you need to know is there's different qualities for producing the MP4 file. The better the quality, the slower it is to produce the file. To me, and especially for social events, I don't see a massive difference in quality between the best quality and the fastest speed. So we always set it to ultra fast to produce the GIF as quickly as possible. And there's maybe a little bit of sacrifice in quality. So we'll OK that, and we'll OK that. And we'll just run that through. And we'll make a 3-photo GIF, which won't be very exciting because my model is not very animated at this time of the morning here. Okay, so that's my 3-photo GIF. I should, you know what, next time I'll jump in front of the camera and make it a bit more exciting. But that's okay. We've got something basic going. Now what we want to do is apply an overlay to that. So if we jump back out here, I'm going to go back to my desktop. So I have a folder of I've got some assets here. So I want to use this image here as a graphic that applies over the GIF. So basically, if you're not familiar with this, Breeze has, I guess, a naming convention for files. So when you're doing a print overlay, normally the name of your print overlay is just called overlay. When you're doing a GIF overlay, it is slideshow GIF. No, it's called slideshow GIF overlay. So you need to call it slideshow GIF overlay. So basically, we're saying this is the graphic that we want to apply over our slideshow GIF. So we'll take that and we just drag it into this folder here. So now, basically, when we run the GIF this time, it should take that graphic and apply it at the top. I'll jump in front of the camera this time to get some movement. Oops, okay, I'm back, but I got my naming convention wrong because it's early. Let me just check something. Okay. Oh yeah, silly me, it's GIF overlay. I'm confused because in the iPad version it is all different. Okay, so for GIF, it's GIF overlay. I should know better than that. Even I make mistakes. Okay, so we'll run that again just to prove that I can get it right. I will go pose again. Okay, huzzah, I got it correct. So, okay, so now we have a slideshow GIF, and we have the overlay correctly applied this time. So this will also print at the same time, and it'll print these three photos on that print layout that we set up just before. Okay. Now, the same principle applies for the boomerang or the burst GIF. So if we come back into our folder of screens, if we I have done this before, George. If we copy this and we rename it to video stills overlay, and now if we go to a burst GIF, which I will go demonstrate. Okay, so now we have a burst GIF with the same overlay. Now, obviously, the good thing about this is that we can use different artwork for the burst GIF as we do for the photo GIF, although for today I'm just keeping it the same. I'll just exit out of that. So when we're doing GIFs, we've basically got video stills overlay for our boomerang or our video GIF, and we've got GIF overlay when we're doing a 3-photo GIF, and we have overlay for the print layout. So let's have a quick look at where this is saving. So if we go into Documents, Photo Booth Images, into this dated folder, so what we can see here is the individual images that we've taken. And these are the ones that are basically straight out of the camera that don't have the graphics applied to them or the filter or anything. If we come into the prints folder, we'll see basically our photo strip as such, and that's the full 6x4 that the printer prints. Now there's also an option in Breeze which is quite handy, processed photos. So the processed photos basically will save a copy of the photo with any filters or cropping that you've applied to the image. So if we go back, Breeze always saves a copy of the very original image, like this one here. It outputs the GIF or the MP4 with your artwork and your filter, but it only saves a copy of the image with the filter on if you essentially tell it to. So if we just jump back out of here and go back into Breeze, into the settings, and under output options here, there's an option up here called Save Copy of Processed Photos. And I always have this turned on because I think it's great to save the processed photos. And in here, my computer has, there we go. You get some additional options. So you can resize these output photos. Now, this is important because what we're going to look at in a second is the ability to also email these individual processed photos. So we can output them. So let's say the camera by default, is probably shooting at something like 4,000 pixels by, whatever. So maybe that's a little bit too big. So we downsize these to say 1,800 by 1,200 images. You can apply some sharpening. And the cool thing is you can also apply graphics to the individual images as well. So we've got that set. I'm just going to leave it like that for the second, and we're going to come back to our folder of screen images. Okay. And just for simplicity's sake, we're going to use the same artwork again. I'm going to duplicate that. And this time we're going to name it Processed Photo Overlay. Okay, so now we've got 4 graphic files. We've got video stills for our burst video GIF. We have processed photo overlay, and that's going to get saved over the individual photos with any filters applied to it. We have GIF overlay, which is going to save over the 3-photo GIF, and we have our overlay for the print file. Now, in this example, these 3 are all the same, but they could all be completely different pieces of artwork. And that's where you start getting a lot of flexibility over design and can start doing some really cool things. So let's run another session. I won't pose for this one. Yes, you'll get the video of this one when we're done. So you can come back to it, which will be great. Too much to remember in one sitting. Okay. Okay, so in terms of running the session, all looks as normal. So we've got our 3-photo GIF, which is great. Now, if we exit out and just have a look at into the folder where we're saving the images. Now, if we go into the processed folder, we can see that we're saving the images with artwork attached. I've obviously got my sizing's probably a little bit off here. I'll have to tweak that. But this is great because now post-event you can send either watermarked images or branded versions of the images to your clients without having to reprocess them. Where this becomes really, really useful is in emailing out of Breeze. If you use Breeze Hub, and we'll quickly look at that before we wrap up today, when you email the session, you can email guests not only the print layout, you can email them the GIF or the MP4, and you can email them every image from the session with the branding on it. And particularly for corporate events, I find this really useful and quite powerful. So, and I have a feeling that maybe Breeze is the only photo booth program that I know of that lets you email every image from the session, the stills, the GIF, and the print layout. It's really good stuff. And because you can control the output dimensions of all of these things, you can send people really high-res images if you want, or you can downsize it and keep it nice and small to make it send faster. But before we look at Breeze Hub and emailing, I just want to jump back and look at a couple other things. So where we save the images is quite important. Obviously, by default, it saves into this dated folder, which is great. But if you've got lots of events on after a while, you're going to start losing, probably losing track of what's what. So how do we change the name of this folder or where the images even save? So if we come back into Breeze and go File down to Preferences, we can change where it saves here. So basically, at the moment, if we come in here, we can see that it's been saved into this folder here. All right. So if we want to move it, hypothetically, just saying to save it to the desktop, we can just change it and we'll save to the desktop, and then any images we take from now will save straight onto the desktop. But we want to put it into some sort of folder that's more relevant to the event. So Breeze has this event setting option here, and in here you can set the name of the event. So I've just named this event with today's date, so 2020-03 for March, and it's the 25th, at least here in Brisbane, followed by the name of the event, so Steve and Jess Wedding. So how do we take that and put it into where create the folder? So Breeze has these very powerful things called tokens, and tokens, and it's all in the manual if you want to have a look. I'll just bring them out here. Tokens, I guess, is little bits of code that people get scared by, but are actually really quite simple. When you insert a token somewhere in Breeze, it gets replaced with another bit of information. So if we put in, for example, let's have a look, %M. %M is for the month. So it'll put in 06 if it's June. So because it's March, if we use %M, it'll put 03 in. So this allows you to, I guess, dynamically create folders and name files based on date and time and other bits of information without you having to manually type it in each time. It automatically works it out. So what we want to use for this example, we want to use the event name, which is somewhere around here. Okay, so down here there's a token called event name. So if we copy that and come back into Breeze, and in this section here, download folder where the photos and movies are saved, if we put in after that desktop event name, we can see right down here in the example that it's now going to save into a folder on the desktop called 2020-03-25 Steve and Jess Wedding. and the name of each image as it downloads is going to be called 0001.jpg, 0002.jpg, etc. But we can also change the name of the file by using the file name prefix. So if we put in that event name token here, now all my images are going to be named with the event name as well. So whenever we take a photo now, it's going to be saved into a Stephen Jess wedding folder, and all the file names are going to be Stephen Jess 0001, 0002, 0003, etc. So let's have a look. So we'll run through a quick session. Okay, so I'll just close that and we'll jump back to the desktop, minimize that. Okay, so now we have on the desktop this folder 2020-03-25 Stephen Jess wedding. And in here now we have all our files which are now named as per that event, including all the processed images, etc. The GIFs get named elsewhere, which we'll have a look at in a sec. So if it's now tomorrow and we've got a different event, we can come into event and we can change the date to 2020-26. We'll say Peter's party, and we OK that. And now if we run this session through, it's going to create, obviously on the desktop, a folder for Peter's party and name the files accordingly. Alright, so I'll just exit out of this and have a look to make sure I'm telling the truth. Okay, so now on the desktop we have Peter's party, and it's naming all the files accordingly. So that's a basic look at how you could use a token and the event to create folders. Now we could take that one step further and we could use a couple other tokens. So I don't want to be entering that date manually all the time. It's way too much work. So if we come up here, there are all these time and date tokens. So we have, let's have a look. We've got year less 8H, month less 8H, day less 8H, etc., and date less 8H. So a quick tip, this less 8H business is really useful. So basically what happens is when you're using one of these tokens to set the date, if you have an event that runs over midnight, when you run over midnight, the date's going to tick over to the next day, and then all the images are going to save into a separate folder for the next day, which you don't want. The less 8H basically means less 8 hours, and so it puts the time back essentially 8 hours. So when you roll over midnight, Breeze thinks it's really like 4 p.m. So it's a way of just trying to keep all your images in the same folder when you tick over to midnight. So let's just grab that date less 8H, and we'll go back into Breeze. And what we're going to do is put the date before the event name. So we'll say dateless 8H event name, and we'll do the same for the file name prefix. But we'll come in here and we'll now just remove the date out of the event name. And so in fact we'll just create a new party. We'll say Ben's party. Okay. So now we don't have to worry about putting the date in because Breeze is going to add the date in for us. We'll run this session through. Okay, if we just minimize that, hopefully on the desktop, we'll have Ben's party, but now Breeze has automatically put the date in for us, 2020-03-24. So that's a pretty useful way of just sort of semi-automating setting up, event folders and things like that, so you don't have to manually do it. And that's a real basic intro to using tokens in Breeze. Tokens are super powerful and you can do so much with them. But starting with the basics with like the event name and date is a really is a good start. The last thing I wanted to sort of look at was just sending emails using Breeze Hub. So Breeze Hub is basically a utility that comes with the iPad app, but it's a free download off the Breeze website. You grab it from the iPad section, and it's a background utility that runs sort of just minimized, like I've got it down here, and it looks for new sessions that you've run in DSLR Remote Pro, but particularly when someone has sent an email. The way DSLR Remote Pro works currently, when you send an email, you can't move past that email screen until the email has actually been sent, which means it has to upload the file, send the email, and then you can move on. The issue with that is that if you have slow internet, that can really slow things down. So it could take 30 seconds or a minute even on a bad connection to send an email, which is just too slow in an event situation. But secondly, when you send emails that way out of Breeze, you can only send either the print layout or the GIF file. When you use Breeze Hub, as I said earlier, you can send the print layout, the GIF file, and the individual images. So how do we do that? So assuming that you've got Breeze Hub installed, and we'll come back to that in a sec, there's a couple tweaks you need to make in DSLR Remote Pro. So we come into output settings and email server settings. So there's two things we need to do. We need to enable this option here, log email addresses to file. Basically, you just need to open up here and just tell it where you want to save that file. So we're just going to save it in this folder here called email. And you want to also enable this option, save XML copy of email. Breeze Hub is looking for this XML file. That's how it knows that an email has been sent. And the important thing is, in here, attachment settings is where you tell it what you want to send. So we can send the print layout along with the slideshow GIF. We can attach the original photos, which are the ones that are straight out of camera, and we can attach the processed photos, which are the ones that have the filter applied and the processed overlay artwork. We can resize what size we want these to get sent out as, and you can also attach thumbnails of the photos that get embedded into the email body. And this is how you can design some really beautiful emails that can actually use the 3 photos that were taken in the session in the body of the email, as well as attaching them. In addition, if you are attaching the GIF file, you can also embed a preview. You can pull a preview image out of the GIF to embed into the email as well. So, and you get to control the size of all those things, which is super flexible, super powerful, but a little bit of work to figure out. Okay, so once we've got our settings set there, what we need to do is come into Breeze Hub, and we come into File, Preferences, and we want to enable the option here to send emails. Everything else here is largely irrelevant for what we're doing, so you can ignore it, and you probably want to tick the option to send emails and text at startup. Which just means when Breeze Hub opens for the first time, it'll start sending any emails, and it's fine without you having to manually start that process. If we come into send emails, we just need to re-put in our SMTP username and password details into here, and the from address that you're sending from. And the most important thing is where you need to tell it where the images are that you're sending. So Breeze Hub can scan and monitor subfolders. So you don't need to point it to each particular event folder. You just need to point it at the main folder where all your events are saved. So my example currently is not great because I have it on the desktop. So let's go back into Breeze and save our images somewhere a little bit more logical. So we'll put them back, say, in the Documents folder, and we'll create a new folder called Event Photos. Okay, so we'll grab the path to that, and in here we'll save that here. So now it's going to look for any images that are saved into Event Photos. It'll find, and so we OK that, and we OK that, and Breeze Hub can just be minimized. We just need to come back into DSLR Remote Pro, Preferences, and just change where we're saving that photo, these photos. So they're now going to save into my Documents, Event Photos, then into the subfolders. Okay, so let's run a session and send an email and see what happens. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to hit the email button, put my email in, and we'll hit send. Okay, and we'll jump back out here and we'll come over to Breeze Hub. Right, and we'll see. What happens. So I'll just make sure that we, oops. Photos. Email file. Okay. All right. So we'll come back to Breeze Hub. Ignore all these ones up here. That's just from previous stuff I was working on. But we can see here that it's now sent the email. Sent an email to steve@photobooth.co with a link to what image has been sent. Now I'll just try and. Okay, so probably can't see it very well, but the emails come through here with the attachments sent through, which looks pretty good. So just real quick, what I'm going to do, because the email that was sent was pretty plain, I'm just going to grab. Just bear with me for 1 sec while I jump into another program behind the scenes. In fact, maybe I'll drag. You know what? Just so you can have a look. This is, I won't really go into this, but this is Be-Free, the email program that I was talking to you about. So this is where we design all our email templates. So Be-Free, like I said, is a drag and drop email template editor. Let's have a look at this one. All right. So this is an event we did for Adidas just recently. Basically, you got all these elements over here, and you drag them onto the page where you want graphics. And when you have it designed the way you want, the only thing you need to do is when you put in the image placeholder, Breeze just uses a particular token that you need to have, and that token is normally something like image in curly brackets, like that. So if we save that, and we export that message and say copy the HTML, what Be Free is going to give me is this lovely piece of code, and we copy that, and then we just come back to Breeze. So when you're using Hub, you still enter your email template into DSLR Remote Pro, not Hub. So we come into settings, email settings, and we'll delete what was there. And I've pasted in that code from Be Free. So we'll OK that. I think. Check one more thing. Just think I need that one ticked. So I'll run that session through and we'll send this email, and hopefully we'll get that nice new email template I just copied in. Alright, so I'll just put my email in. I'll send. And while I'm sending, waiting for that one to send, I'll just do a burst GIF as well. And we'll send that one so we can see what happens. Okay, looks good. Okay. Alright, so we'll just jump back into Breeze Hub and hopefully. Yep, so it's just sent. That probably was the 3-photo GIF that's just sent, and if we just watch this for a sec, we should see the boomerang GIF email get sent off in a moment as well. But this all happens in the background, so from your guest perspective, they just do their session, put their email address and leave, and then a few minutes later they'll get the email. Let's see if that one's come through. Yep. Okay, so that is the new email with the template that I just did, and all the attachments. So it's attached basically all the individual images and the GIF and the print layout. And yep, and we can see here also that video, the burst GIF email has sent as well. It'll just come through to my phone now. So it's pulled basically in the body of the email. If you can see, it's pulled a frame from the GIF, the video GIF, to use in the email body, and then it's attached then the MP4 to the email as well. So this is a much better way of sending emails out of DSLR because you get more control over what gets sent, and you can control the quality of each image that's sent as well. So if you've got slow internet, it doesn't matter so much because these will just all send in the background. Even if you've got no internet, it doesn't matter, because what will happen is, when you've finished the event, if you bring your computer back to the office or your house, just start Breeze Hub up. You don't even need to start DSLR Remote Pro, just let Breeze Hub run, and it will just pick up any emails that have not yet been sent and just send them automatically. So it really is a much better way to send emails. And if you use a tool like Be Free, you can really send some really nicely designed emails out to clients. So, where are we? I'm back here. So that was about it, I think. So really, if you sort of go back and watch this video from start to finish, it sort of gives you a walkthrough of how to get up and running with an event. So I think we covered off print layouts, GIF overlays, sending emails, a better way to send emails, and some basics into using tokens, so how to dynamically create event folders and rename files, and using the event settings to do that, and also Breeze Hub. So like I said at the start, all Breeze products are immensely powerful and really flexible, but you sort of got to learn the basics and get your head around the way things are done, because it is a little bit different to some of the other mainstream software. But the things you can do with Breeze are just absolutely incredible. And things like the tokens just can unlock a whole bunch of crazy powerful stuff. But you just got to get your head around the basics first, and start getting comfortable with it. Then you'll find it just starts becoming second nature, and one idea tends to lead to the next in this program. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you have any questions, just drop them into the Facebook group. Obviously, I'll check it and I'll get back to you. But I think it'll be a good little place to maybe have a little micro community of Breeze users in here. I've recorded this video, so I'll upload a higher res version of it when I'm done. Otherwise, thanks heaps, guys. It's good to have you, and I hope you're enjoying your quarantine time at home. All right, we'll chat soon.